start on the computer.
Thank you. Good morning, everybody, and welcome to our full council meeting. Today, Thursday, the 5th of November 2020 at 9:30. This will be a virtual meeting with a remote attendance by councillors and remote access of press and public, and will be held in accordance with the provisions of the local authorities and police and crime panels, coronavirus flexibility of local authority, and police and crime panel meetings, England and Wales, regulations 2020. I'd like to welcome all members. I'd like to welcome the press and the public. This will be transmitted on radio as well. And first of all, I'd just like to mention that I'd like all councillors please to be muted unless they are speaking. And I will be asking when we vote for votes against rather than vote for. So if you do not vote against, you will be deemed to be voting for unless you say that you're abstaining. And I would just ask the monitoring officer, Stephen Taylor, please just do a roll call of members attending. Thank you.
Thank you, Chairman. I will call the names in the order as set out on the agenda. If you just indicate that you are present and that we can therefore hear you and that you can hear us. Councillor Dean?
Yeah, present.
Thank you. Councillor Davis?
Present.
Thank you. Councillor Legg? Councillor Legg?
He's on the mainland, Stephen.
Thank you. Councillor Marcus?
He's on the mainland.
Thank you. The telephone's not stretched to there.
I think they're travelling.
Thank you. Councillor Roger?
Present.
Thank you. Councillor Smith is on the mainland, I assume. Thank you. Councillor Watt?
Yes, present.
Thank you. Councillor Williams?
Present.
Thank you. Councillor Lady Barclay?
Yes, I'm here.
Thank you. Councillor Dorian Smith?
Present.
Thank you. Councillor Gottick?
Present.
Thank you. Councillor Guy? Councillor Guy on the mainland? Yes. Okay. Councillor Mrs. Mumford?
Present.
Thank you. Councillor Nellams?
Present.
Thank you. And Councillor Sims?
Present.
Thank you.
Thank you very much, Stephen.
Now, can I just ask, is there anybody that I have not mentioned who is in attendance, apart obviously from the officers? Thank you.
Thank you. Item 1 on our agenda is declarations of interest. Do we have any declarations of interest, please, for today's meeting? Councillor Roger.
I declare non-pecuniary interest in urgent item number 7, as I am a director of the Islands Partnership.
Thank you. Councillor Grottick.
Thank you, Chairman. I'd just like to confirm that I represent the Council on the Local Enterprise Partnership and the Cornwall Partnership NHS Trust.
Thank you. Are there any other declarations, please?
Chairman, Robert Dorian Smith. Yes, there's items in the finance report referring to some sea defence money for Tresco. So I have an interest there. I won't be voting on that.
Okay, thank you very much. So item 2 on our agenda is the minutes of our previous meetings. To confirm them as a correct record. Are there any comments about those minutes, please? Then could I have a proposer that they're confirmed?
Proposed.
Councillor Mumford, seconder, please. Thank you. Councillor Grottick. Anybody against those minutes being adopted, please? Thank you. I confirm they are now confirmed. Item 3 on our agenda, Chairman's announcements. I would just like to say a few words following the announcement of a further lockdown last weekend. It's obviously left us somewhat shocked and giving serious concerns to many of us. However, I would like to assure you and all our community that all preparations are fully in place and we are in a very good position to be able to cope well. We will be issuing regular guidance to help with questions you may have, including business support and shielding. Details will be on our website and distributed more widely. Please continue to help those you know who do not access information technology and direct them to our phone numbers. It is also disappointing that we will be unable to mark our respects publicly for those who gave their lives in the service of our country this Remembrance Sunday. A private respect will be paid and we can all privately remember. Further guidance is on our website. It is very important that we all work together through this current situation. Our community is well placed to come out of this in good order next month, and your council will be doing everything we can to support you through to better times ahead. So stay safe and keep well. Thank you. Item 4 on our agenda, the questions under Standing Order 14, which I have none. Item 5 is to consider reports from committees. So first of all, Scrutiny Committee, have you anything to mention on that, please, Councillor Mumford?
Yes, I think there's been a bit of a muddle up here because I can't find the minutes under internal audit block 1. I'll just say, I think there's been a bit of a mix-up, Andy. Have the review of collaboration has come out twice.
There has. So there's been a double dip, if you like. So I will amend those minutes so when they do come to scrutiny, you will have the full minute, including that internal audit.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Chairman.
Licensing Committee, Councillor Watt.
No, nothing further, Chairman. I think the minutes are fairly straightforward.
Okay, thank you very much. Just as far as the Outbreak Engagement Board is concerned, I was unable to be at that meeting. It was therefore chaired by the Vice Chairman, Councillor Grottick. So that amendment to the minutes will be made for that. And finally, the Inshore Fisheries and Conservation Authority. I'm not sure that Councillor Dye is present, I don't think he'll be able to comment on that. But again, the minutes are fairly straightforward. Okay, so we will move on. Thank you to item 6 on our agenda, which is to consider motions in accordance with Standing Order 12. I have none. Item 7 on our agenda, urgent items. We do have one urgent item, which is a local enterprise partnership grant submission expression of interest for an Isles of Scilly cultural centre, which is in the hands of our senior manager, Nicholas Simpson. Thank you, Nicholas.
Thank you, Chairman. The Cornwall and Isles Enterprise Partnership have invited interested parties to submit expressions of interest for projects that drive economic growth. It's really just to inform a future pipeline of projects. Expression of interest. I recognise within the corporate plan we've got an ambition to deliver a cultural centre, and whilst this project is at concept stage and we've got a draft vision, I think it's worth putting expression interest in at this time. The project's ambitious, and the vision expresses an ambition to look at the range of needs in a multifunctional building to provide wet weather facilities, a museum and other aspirations for the island. It's at a very early stage. It's just at concept stage at this time. And the initial site that's been explored is the Carl Thomas Junior School site. But as part of any development of the project, all site options will be explored as we progress the scheme. So it's just an initial expression of interest, and it's to ensure that the local enterprise partnership are aware of this project as a key priority for the islands. So it's just the start, but if we aren't at the start, we won't get any funding. So I've put 3 recommendations to you today. One is to submit the expression of interest. And the second is that we're already working with other partners to develop the feasibility and viability work. And the third recommendation is that we agree the initial draft vision for the project set out in the appendices. Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you very much, Nicola. Councillor Mumford.
Thank you, Chairman. I'm very pleased to see this come to Council. I would just like to make a comment in the Appendix A. I was very pleased to see that if this all goes ahead, it's to retain or reclaim some of the original brand features, and especially the bell tower, because that goes back to 1897, which came off a shipwreck, I believe, and that's very important to either keep that up there, which I would have thought would be the best place for it, and I was very pleased to see that in there, and I would fully support this. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Grottek, please.
Thank you, Chair. Colleagues will be aware that I do represent them on the left. However, I do think it is appropriate for me to say that I totally support this project at this stage and totally support this report coming to full council. If I could just make a passing observation quickly that, of course, the museum is not just a building. It's all the folk who've invested time and energy over the years to preserve our cultural heritage. And it will be wonderful to work together to secure a cultural centre that both celebrates our past and looks forward to the future. However, I think we all recognise it's going to be extremely challenging to secure funding at this stage, and obviously we will be working with the trustees and other partners to secure the future of the museum until we can have the centre that we all hope for. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Williams.
Thank you, Chairman. I just wanted to use this opportunity as it's an appropriate time to mention awards the museum have won recently. They won the 2020 Cornwall Heritage Award, which was a strong collaboration between local young people looking to become young curators, learning about local heritage and culture, and the fact they won it during the last 12 months when they had lots of other things on their mind, I think speaks volumes for their community engagement side of things. In terms of this actual report, I note that governance is alluded to, but I'd certainly like to see more member engagement as a formalised part of that governance going forward, and a bit more about community engagement too. There wasn't much about that, despite lots of assertions that things had been agreed. I was also pleased to see reference to the theatre. That's something which the community have been talking about for many years now. And I think as we review our corporate properties and things like that, those sorts of projects could fit very well into going forward.
Thank you. Councillor Watt, please.
Yeah, thank you, Chairman. This appears to be a new chapter in collaboration between the museum and the council, and I hope so. And if so, will the council be reappointing the trustee membership?
I'm not sure I can answer that at this moment, Steve, but it's certainly something that we will look at and deal with. Good point. Thank you very much. Steve Sims, please.
Yeah, hello. Good morning, everybody. I'm very supportive of this, but I've just got a message through. I won't say who it's from. On this specific instance, so I think I should pass it on. And the message is, whilst agreeing that the islands need a new museum, I'm extremely worried about the sustainability of such a centre. Sad as it is, people do not come to the islands specifically to visit the museum. Our visitor numbers are low. I worry that any centre with the virtual features that are planned and the cost involved in supplying services and labour to support such a complex will make it very difficult to sustain. Now, that's not my view at this stage, but it's a message I got, so I thought it was worth passing it on, and I think it's something we probably need to be cognizant of. But overall, I'm very much in support of the project.
Okay, thank you. Could I next have Councillor Rogers, please?
Now, just to come back on Councillor Sims there, I think the multi-use of the proposed facility, and that is not a finite list at this moment, will do its very most to ensure financial viability for such a project. It's been asked for by the community and the visitor alike for many a year now, and I think we've got a once in a generation opportunity here to create a first-class facility that can tick lots of boxes for lots of organisations, and the financial viability is something that must be managed going forward, and I'm sure it can be in this instance. Pretty supportive, obviously.
Thank you. Nicola, I think you wanted to come back, please.
Yes, just pointed out that recommendation 2 is indeed around the feasibility and viability, because at a concept stage it's really important to think about the long term. So those points made by Councillor Sims are important. It's not about getting the capital investment just to build a building or to convert a building. It's about making sure we've got something that's sustainable into the future. So acutely aware of that, and that's why the preparation work around the viability and the feasibility of the project has to be done at this stage and then revisited as we go through the project. So a very valid point. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Nellams.
Thank you, Chair. I think that's a very good point made earlier by Councillor Roger, that it's a multi-use building with so many partners, with so many uses, and particularly what Councillor Williams said about the lecture room come theatre. I think that's a hugely important piece of work, and I heartily support this, and I think we mustn't just look at it as a museum. There's so many other partners involved as yet unspecified, but I think it could get by as it goes on. Universities, that sort of thing. I think it's a marvellous project.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Could I please ask members to make sure they are muted, please? There's a lot of background coming through. Please make sure you're muted. Councillor Watts, you've still got your hand up. Did you put it up again? Sorry, I didn't check.
Oh, sorry, Chairman. Another legacy hand.
No problem. Thank you very much. Councillor Nellams, are you wanting to speak again?
No, sorry, Chair.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Mumford, please.
I'd just like to propose the 3 recommendations, please.
I'm not going to talk again, so it's all right.
I need to.
Sorry, we've got a lot of background again, please. Please make sure you are muted. Thank you. Could I have a seconder, please, for Councillor Mumford's proposal for these 3 recommendations? Councillor Dean. Thank you. Anybody against these recommendations? Then they're carried. Thank you very much indeed. So we're moving on next to item 8 on our agenda, which is in the hands of our Senior Officer for Planning, Lisa, the Community Hall at Middletown St Martin's. Thank you, Lisa.
Thank you, Chair. So this application is brought to full council on the basis that the council is the applicant. The proposal relates to the installation of standalone solar panels on enclosed land to the rear of the St Martin's Community Hall. The solar panels are part of the wider GoEV project that would support an electric vehicle charging point, which is proposed to be installed to the front of the Community Hall building. The EV charger does not in itself require planning permission, so this is not subject to assessment in the report. The assessment finds that whilst the panels proposed will sit prominently within the site, they are sufficiently screened by the high hedges that enclose the land to the rear of the Community Hall. No amenity issues have been identified, and as a result of the neutral impact identified on the wider landscape, the proposal has been considered acceptable and subject to the conditions set out in the report. It is recommended for approval.
Thank you. Councillor Mumford.
Yes, I've actually seen this site, and it looks as if it will be well hidden by the hedges, and I would like to propose the recommendations that we give permission.
Thank you. Is anyone else wishing to speak on this matter, please? Then could I have a seconder for Councillor Mumford?
Yes, Marion Barclay.
Thank you very much, Councillor Barclay. You have a recommendation that members grant Planning Commission. Is there anybody against that, please? Then that is passed. Thank you very much indeed. So we move on next to the second planning application, item 9 on our agenda, which is the Old Chapel, Old Town Lane, St Mary's, again in the hands of Lisa. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. This application is brought to full council on the basis that the applicant is employed by the council. The proposal relates to the removal of 2 existing conservatory structures and their replacement with extensions. The proposal has been assessed against adopted and emerging policies, and although marginally larger than the existing dwelling, on the basis of the neutral to positive changes identified without giving rise to harm, proposal has been considered acceptable and subject to the conditions set out is recommended for approval.
Thank you very much. Do we have anyone wishing to speak on this application, please? No, in that case, Councillor Mumford.
I would like to propose the recommendations.
Thank you. Do I have a seconder, please? That's Councillor Roger. Thank you. So the recommendations are that members grant planning permission and that members delegate to the senior officer for planning any minor changes required to the conditions set out in Appendix A. Is there anybody against this proposal, please? No, then it's passed. Thank you very much indeed. So we move on to item 10 on our agenda, which is the second quarter of 2020-2021 year financial performance report, which is in the hands of our 151 officer, Russell. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. Yes, in front of you today, you've got the Quarter 2 finance report. If I just take you through this quickly and the key points, and then I'll take any questions at the end. First of all, if we take us onto page 68, we've got the position for the revenue budget. And obviously set out there is that this is with the background, obviously, of the COVID pandemic emergency. We reported the impact when we did the first quarter report. Obviously, restrictions and the impact has continued into the second quarter. But we have received government assistance in funding and with our own prudent financial management. I think we are still in a fairly strong position as we stand at the end of the second quarter to weather this very difficult year. Actually, our actual position as at the end of the second quarter is that we're now showing a forecast underspend by year end of £65,000. Now, when we reported at the end of the first quarter, we were predicting a very worst case scenario of that we could be overspent by something just over £500,000. But I did point out in that report that we felt that there was a load of mitigations that would occur during the second quarter, which could total about £570,000, which would help mitigate that overspend. But at that point, we were being prudent because we didn't have confirmation that some of that funding and some of those mitigations were sufficiently established that we could actually count on them. Obviously, during the second quarter, that has changed, and we are now bringing those into the forecast. So that is probably the main reason for the significant swing from being a predicted £500,000 overspend to now being a relatively modest underspend of £65,000. A significant element of that is obviously a significant element of government grant that we have received during the period, but also very good financial management, and we've identified that the ongoing savings that helped out to deliver a balanced budget last year in the adults and children's area are continuing, so we've been able to bring those into account as well. If you move forward, you will see the extent of the government funding that we've received, which is in addition to our normal funding. That's on page 70. And all I can say is that this is out of date because we're getting grants through almost on a daily basis at the moment, particularly as we move into the second period of lockdown. So this list will get longer. But we are getting reasonable support in most areas, although there are a couple of areas which we are lobbying government that we don't think they are providing the support that we should get. But in general terms, we have been receiving a reasonable level of government support for our COVID activity. As you can see, it's just over £500,000 now. As you move forward, you can see in the chart on the next page that we've moved from that overspend position to the underspend position as a forecast. And I say that's a healthy position at the mid-year, and I think we should sustain that to the year end now. The next part is the analysis by subjective code, by expenditure type. I won't dwell on there because there is an element of distortion this year due to COVID, so it's included for completeness, but doesn't actually provide a considerable amount of analysis at the moment. You can see, for instance, that income looks like it's pretty much on target, but that's because we've had significant support from central government on some of our loss of income. So moving on, in terms of the capital programme, the capital expenditure, we've set up the latest capital programme there with the spend to date. We have uplifted the capital programme for the swimming pool scheme, which you approved last quarter's meeting, and we've also uplifted for a small sum of $2,900 for an additional grant that we received for Tresco flood relief works, which was passed straight on to cover costs incurred. I think it was drifted over from the previous grant work that we were doing on flood relief, so we've just updated the capital programme for that. There's no impact on the council's resources, but it's just for completeness. We've reprofiled the Go EV project based on our submission. I'm not sure whether we've actually got that approved yet, but we thought it was prudent to show what we think the forecast position is now rather than the original approved figures with the funding partners. And we've also moved £50,000 from operational service vehicles, that replacement programme, to fund additional works at the engineering workshops. We did a review earlier in the year because there was an opportunity that while the contractor was on site for the servicing works around engineering workshops, it was feasible to extend that to cover the whole site. And at that point, we reviewed the replacement programme and decided that this was a higher priority.
Hello. Your call cannot be taken at the moment, so please leave your message after the tone.
I'll just wait for that to... Okay, I'll continue. I think we might cut back in a minute. So we have moved 50,000 there to take advantage of getting that resurfacing work done at a really good value for money deal, because it saved the cost of setting up a second scheme early next year. The capital programme is therefore set out with the latest position at the top of page 73. The one thing I would say is, obviously, we're still predicting 4.6 million spend for the year. I don't think we'll get to that level. We'll try and refine that as we go. At the moment, we spent 15% of that 4.6 million. There will be some lumpy expenditure coming in the second half of the year, which will push that up much quicker than if you just pro-rata it forward. There's obviously the work around that museum project and the Go EVs, which will spend significant sums in the second half of the year.
Look it up then.
So that is where we are with the capital programme. Slow spend, no schemes at the moment that we think we have a problem with. the major scheme performance, we've got the two major schemes set out here. The Go EV electric vehicle scheme. You can see we reprofiled that as with our latest submission. Spend is still relatively low, so there'll be a significant push, particularly on the capital expenditure in the next sort of 2 quarters. So hopefully there will be a lot of activity and some of those works will catch up. Obviously, we submitted the reprofiling and we believe it will be approved, so we don't see any issues there. We don't see any issues with the project at the moment, other than a significant element of spend required in the next 6 to 8 months. The voucher scheme, again, slow spend, picking up a little bit on some of the revenue projects recently, but again, relatively low spend. I think the project team are going out trying to push the scheme, but it's obviously an application-based scheme, and obviously probably slowed down even more so with the COVID impact. But we can't go out and make people request funding, but we have no risk if we don't spend the money by the end of the project. There's no outputs that will cause a clawback. Moving on, the forecast savings position. As always, we've done an analysis and the latest position on our savings plans. Obviously, with the revenue position showing and understand, you can assume that the majority of the savings are being delivered, which is what the analysis shows. The vast majority are being delivered. Some have delivered more than we expected, but we're well on track to deliver the 397,000 that we built into the budget at the beginning of the year. We believe that we can deliver at least 395,000 by the end of the year. So that's really good performance considering the impact of having to do that in the light of COVID. So moving on to council tax collection, perhaps slightly not such a good position for us. As reported previously in both the Q1 report and in some of the COVID update reports, council tax collection rates have taken a hit during the COVID period. We have got a lower collection rate, about between 3.5% and 4% below what we'd anticipate for the year to date. Some of that will be down to difficulties that people will have in paying their council tax, but there is also an impact there that the ability to chase council tax has been restricted. Obviously, we weren't going to chase through the lockdown period, and then when we can start chasing debt and being more proactive with the collection regime, obviously we're having to wait for the courts to get up and running and clear the backlog if we need to take court action against anybody. And I do believe we will get an improved performance once collection activity can ramp right up to where it should be, because although expectation is that some people will have difficulties, there are also some people that don't pay until they are chased to the sort of the last resort. The other part on council tax we need to bear in mind is that the actual collectible base is reduced by somewhere between 40 and 50,000. I put 45,000 in the report. That's due to additional local council tax support that people have become eligible for. I think it's interesting that the government gave us the grant for about £4,000 to sort of reflect that, so it was out by a factor of about 10. The net impact of that is with both the performance and the lower base is it will not impact on the council's financial position this year, because it will create a deficit, a potential deficit on the collection fund. And collection fund deficits are collected in the year following the deficit. So although no impact on this year, it could have an impact on our financial planning for future years. And I do believe that we will have a deficit on the collection fund. But we're also hopeful that there may be some additional support during the spending review to help with that from central government. So it's a wait and see, but we will have a deficit at year end. There was once very small council tax bill written off during the quarter for 79.35 due to it being uneconomical to chase somebody who's gone with or left the island, and to chase them would have cost far more than £79. Business rate collection shows a very healthy position, but there is a caveat around that in that some of the organisations have paid their business rates in full for the year. And if you actually look at the trend on the graph at the top of page 78 and try and predict the trend forward on those the darker bars, the actual bars, you'll see that actually we could well come out short by the end of the year. And again, I think this will add to our deficit position on the collection fund. But we are hopeful that that won't be as bad as maybe that trend line would show. And again, as collection activity now ramps up, we're hopeful that a few of the outstanding accounts will get paid once they're chased a little bit more aggressively. The water rates collection performance is probably one I need to draw your attention to. We finished being the water service operator at the start of the year. We'd have originally anticipated that the amount of outstanding water rate bills would have been cleared very quickly in the first quarter, but obviously with the COVID lockdown and the restrictions on debt collection, which were brought in, by central government, that we should not be chasing outstanding debt during that period. That has caused a delay, and obviously, in the normal circumstances, any delay in trying to collect debt means it gets older and it gets more difficult to collect. So hopefully by the end of the second quarter, we would have cleared the lion's share of that debt, was the plan, but we have not succeeded in doing that, and we still have a sum of about £85,000 owing. I think we will end up having to write a significant sum off, not the whole 85,000 over that, but there will be a significant sum that may be greater than what we've allowed for as a provision at the end of last year. I'm hopeful that through the third quarter, as I say, once with courts now opening up, we can catch up on activity, but I do believe that we're going to struggle to recover all that sum outstanding. In terms of the housing rate collection, performance has improved fairly significantly, as you can see, during this period. The balance outstanding is now pretty much on our target for the year, and the main reason you'll see in the table in the middle of page 80 is obviously there was a fairly significant element of rent written off, which was approved through last full council. In terms of the summary debt position, again, higher than we would anticipate or would like to see at this time of year. Our actual collection rate is 76% against our target of 90%. Definitely some of this is down to obviously the ability to actually do some of the collection regimes through the first 6 months of the year. But obviously, as with the water rates, my concern is as debt gets older, it becomes more difficult to collect. So it's one to keep a close eye on. And we may have to make a further provision towards the end of the year for a larger sum that may have to be set up as a bad debt provision. Payment of invoices, apart from the blip in the first part of the year, which was mainly down to the new Oracle financial system that the council brought in, you'll see that performance since May has been pretty good, with only one red on that chart at the top of page 82, where we were just slightly under the target for paying a lot of SMEs in 14 days, which is our stretch target. We have paid everybody, as you can see, all the SMEs in 30 days. Our stretch target we just slightly came under in August. And there was no treasury management activity, which I have to report on as part of the SIP for Code treasury management. There has been no activity during this quarter. Thank you very much, Chair.
Thanks very much indeed for that, Russell. Could I have the Chief Executive, Paul Masters, please?
Thank you, Chairman. Morning, members. It was literally just to say a couple of things in response to Russell's report. Firstly, thanks to Russell and the finance team for pulling it together and helping us through what has been an incredibly challenging time with all the various grants and bits and pieces that have been coming our way and trying to make sense of that. But a real thanks, obviously, to your managers, chairman, and all the staff who, of course, manage the budgets from a day-to-day perspective, and with a real eye now on the bottom line of the council's finances. I think whilst there have been some areas of the savings plan which you'll see we haven't achieved, to be up into the 99% of savings achievement, I can tell you from my experience, is absolutely unique in a local government position. That's an incredible performance against our savings target, so thanks to the staff for that as well. And as Russell alluded to, all the way through this COVID period, we have received good support from the government as an island community. We've won some, we've lost some in terms of some of the funding that have come, which then leads to the bigger picture, Chairman, which I know you're keen on, which is the ongoing push with government for a different settlement arrangement for the islands, in order that we could be more masters of our own destiny in the way that we manage our budgets. And we are hopeful that we'll make some progress on that. And lastly, to give members and the public confidence in our financial management, there will be an internal report coming to audit in November in our Block 2 audit plan, and there'll be quite a lot in that on our financial management, which I won't preempt, but is certainly giving some further assurance to members about our sound financial management as an authority. Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you very much, Paul. Senior Manager Ashling, please.
Hello, thank you, Chairman. Just wanted to say, so obviously there are underspends in children and adult services, and I want to give reassurance to the wider membership because my lead member for children and adults are both aware that the underspend doesn't indicate a diminution of services. In fact, we've kept lots of things going. It actually reflects quite a lot of income that we've managed to achieve through the Best Care Fund, through a bid through the DFE, etc. So services are still achieving what they need to do. Obviously, there's been a huge kind of saving in terms of homeschool travel, as you can imagine, but I just want to reassure you that underspend doesn't mean that services aren't exactly where you want them to be in terms of the corporate plan.
Okay, thank you very much, Ashling. Councillor Nellams, please.
Thank you, Chair. I'd just like to highlight savings in travelling. Maybe that in the future we'd look at different working practices in the way that we're doing now. Instead of flocks of off-island councillors taking to the high seas for meetings, coming to St Mary's, people going over to the mainland, I think it shows that actually it saves not just money, but a lot of time. As I know as an off-island councillor in the past, sometimes you come for a meeting that might take 2 hours and you're sitting on St Mary's for sort of 8 hours waiting for boats. But I think also these meetings are often a bit sharper when we're sitting on teams like this. And I just think it's worthwhile when COVID is disappeared eventually that we can maybe look at having more meetings through this sort of system. It saves a lot of money and it saves a lot of time.
Thank you very much indeed. Councillor Williams, please.
Thank you, Chairman. My first question to Russell was about council tax collection. In this day and age, we can do so much online without having to pick up phones and things like that. Is there any sign on the horizon that things like council tax might be able to be paid online in due course? And my second question, I think, is probably more directed to Paul. And there's lots of reference in this report to COVID and the economy. And I just wonder if we could get a march on other areas by making an early commitment to things like the evacuation fund, which was set up last year, so that organisations like IP can promote that. Maybe our bookings might get more time for the early season. We might be able to some of the concern around the economy by putting that in place before too long.
Thank you, Russell.
Yeah, I'll follow up on the payment online. We should be able to provide that now. I will work out with Cornwall what the hold-up is of providing that service and putting it in place. And I'll feed back to Councillor Williams and the rest of full council once I have an answer.
Thank you. Paul, do you want to come in?
Yeah, I get the point the councillor makes about the evacuation fund, which, as you know, we set up in partnership with Tresco and the Steamship Company in order to offer some confidence to people travelling to the islands that in the event of them having a positive test, they could be able to get home. Whether or not that will need to carry on into New Year is an interesting point. And currently that fund that we set up, we haven't utilised as of yet. So I think we can tie that into our budget discussions, which we're going to have over the next couple of weeks with members. And also I'll take that up with the transport operators and the IP as well about whether we think there is a need for that and whether or not we should roll forward that fund, perhaps as a starter. But I'll take your lead on that, members, as we go through the budget discussion.
Thank you very much. Councillor Grothick.
Thank you, Chair. I'd just like to add to Councillor Nellam's comments about the savings around travel costs, and I would hope if we look at page 72 of the report that we could save even more. I was surprised actually that figure wasn't a little higher. And secondly, I'd like to use the opportunity that I have now to widen the discussion a little around the state of our buildings. We know, because we're currently looking at the state of our corporate estate, that is a large piece of work that we'll be doing. And there's been a lot of comment on social media lately about the state of some of our corporate estates. And I would just like to reassure members of the community that we are really concerned that we actually do work to improve our corporate estate. And I know that our new chief exec and the rest of the officers are going to work with us. And so I would just like to say that I acknowledge the community concern, although I would say please don't believe all you read on social media. However, we do, all of us, I think, acknowledge the community concern about our corporate estate. I note that we seem to be spending or looking to spend more on park house repairs than we had previously budgeted for, but that is in common with many of our buildings that do need significant expenditure in both finance and energy. So I hope we're going to be taking that forward. I know we will be soon. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Councillor Grothick, and I'd just like to endorse that as well. We are taking our corporate estate very seriously, and a lot of work is currently being done to resolve the issues around that. Councillor Mumford, please.
Thank you, Chairman. As Chairman of Scrutiny, I'd just like to thank Russell or congratulate him on our finances, also our senior managers and all staff that have worked so hard during these last few months. It's not been easy for them, I'm sure. I'd just like to ask Russell one question, going back to the travelling expenses. Does that include all the off-island trips that have been saved, as well as trips going to the mainland? Russell?
Yeah, in terms of the table that you're probably referring to at the top of page 76, it's probably slightly misleading in terms of, is that the total level of savings that we've delivered for the year? No, we probably delivered far more than that on travelling. This table measures whether we actually delivered on the saving initiative we put in the budget. So at the beginning of the year, we looked and set the budget based on reducing our travel by £18,000. And the answer is yes, we have delivered 100% of that saving. We've probably delivered 200 or 300%, but it only measures up to 100%. We have delivered that saving. We have probably delivered far more, and we'll have that discussion at some point, because I think it feeds into the budget discussions that Paul alluded to over the next couple of months, because I think there is the ability to make further savings and help take some of the pressure off the budget in the next 2 years.
Yeah, I agree with all that. I think it's been a big saving, and we should try and do as much virtually as possible in the future. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Councillor Roger, did you want to come in?
Just to endorse Councillor Nellam's and Councillor Mumford's thoughts on the travel, I would agree with that. It can save a lot of money going forward, and we should continue to try and do that.
Thank you. Stephen Taylor, please, Monitoring Officer.
Yeah, thank you, Chairman. Just to give some comfort to members that there is national discussion going on at the moment as to the extension of the current rules allowing virtual meetings. It is a bit complicated because of the different software provisions that different councils have as to whether or not we can have hybrid meetings. But in the meantime, there are discussions about extending the current regulations, which will be of comfort to members, and it could result in further savings in travel, as has already been said.
Thank you. Chief Executive, did you want to come in, please? Yeah, you're muted, I think, Paul.
Sorry, Chairman. I think it's the legacy hand that I had up. I think I'd made my point earlier. Apologies for that.
No problem at all. Thank you. And just from the chair, I would like to endorse what our Chairman of Scrutiny has just said, and very much appreciate Russell's handling of our financial affairs and the hard work that all our staff have done to make this budget position what it is at the moment. It's a great credit to you all, and it's very good for this council to be able to report such a healthy position, especially considering all the challenges that we face. So thank you very much indeed from the chair. Now we have 3 recommendations to this report. Firstly, that members note the second quarter financial report. Secondly, that members approve the addition of £2,903 to the capital programme for the Tresco flood defence work, funded from an external grant. And lastly, that members approve the environment of £50,000 in the capital programme from operational vehicles replacement to the Porthmelon Engineering Workshop refurbishment project. Councillor Grothick, are you proposing these?
I am, Chairman, please. I propose all of the recommendations.
Thank you. Could I have a seconder, please? Councillor Mumford. Thank you. Is there anybody against the adoption of these recommendations? Then they're carried. Thank you very much indeed. So we come to item 11 on our agenda, which is the registration fees for the period 1st of April 2021 to the 31st of March 2022, which are in the hands of our Senior Officer for Public Relations and Communications, Tom Walton. Thank you, Tom.
Thank you, Chairman. Good morning, everyone. This report sets out the recommended fees to the Council's registration service for the next financial year. The Council normally sets all of its fees during the early part of the calendar year, but it's not ideal for our registration customers who, for obvious reasons, want to book ceremonies such as weddings a year in advance. As agreed with the Section 151 officer, the recommendation is to increase all discretionary fees in registration by 2% to cover the assumed inflation on costs in the coming year. Once a review of the service costs has been carried out in the next calendar year, we'll bring another fees paper to members, which may see larger changes to the fees based on a better understanding of what it costs to deliver the service in our island context and benchmarking against other providers, amongst other things. The aim will be ultimately, in future years, to have 2 years' worth of fees available to our customers at any given time, because this is normal practice for registration services across the country, and we think it's a better service to our customers to be able to plan in advance with assurance on costs. So, in summary, this set of fees is really just to get us set for the coming financial year at a 2% increase where we are allowed to apply an increase. Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you very much. Does any member wish to come back on this, please? No, in that case, could I please have a proposer, Councillor Grothick, and a seconder, please, for the recommendation that these fees are approved. Councillor Mumford. Is there any member against the approval of these fees, please? And they're passed. Thank you very much indeed. So that concludes all our agenda items for decisions in Part 1. Part 2 reports are for information only, the schedule of delegated planning applications and members' updates. So with that at 10:25, I will close the meeting. Thank you very much indeed.